Welcome to Rates and Barrels, presented by E-Trade from Morgan Stanley. It is Thursday, July 31st. It's trade deadline day in Major League Baseball. We are 1 hour away from the pencils down chorus that we're going to get. It's been busy already. Derek Van Riper, Sears, Britt here with you. AJ Preller wreaking havoc on everyone at this deadline. The Houston Astros doing big things. Carlos Correa is an Astro again. That's incredible. Eugenio Suárez is a Mariner again. We're going to break all of that down over the next hour plus. So tons of ground to cover. And I wanted to start, with our newest contributor. How are we doing?
We're doing good. Those of you watching on YouTube, you might have seen my child. We have a little travel snafu in our house. He will be in and out of this podcast.
After
he you make big babies. You make big babies, Britt.
I do. They're enormous.
Look at that.
So unimpressed. So unimpressed with the trade deadline.
Oh, come on. This is a great trade deadline so far. Everything you could possibly want. I want to start with maybe the most surprising move of all. Mason Miller got flipped to the Padres in a 5-player trade. JP Sears goes with Mason Miller. Leo DeVries, the best prospect, moved probably of the entire deadline. One of the highest ranked prospects moved, I think, since Eloy Jimenez, according to Baseball America, and that was in 2017. 13th in Keith Law's midseason update over at The Athletic. Clearly, the Padres are in the aggressive go-for-it-now mode, and even with an hour to go, we're still expecting more to come. But, how surprised were you to see Mason Miller, of all players, end up in San Diego?
You can improve a strength, you don't have to just focus on your weaknesses and make your biggest thing there. You can improve a strength, and you can take what was one of the best 3 or 4 bullpens, or maybe even the best bullpen, and make it better. You can improve a strength and still make your team better. So I like that, that thinking. I also was poking around on Leo DeVries a little bit, and though he is a top Padres just traded away Britt's baby. Love that for the live stream. But Leo DeVries, though he is top 5 prospect in Baseball America, Keith Law has him at 13, and Eric Longenhagen and Fangraphs has him even lower. There are concerns. He is being caught as often as he's trying to steal. So he doesn't have great legs. There are some concerns about what does he stick at shortstop. And then I looked at his splits, and I was really surprised to see a 486 slugging at home and a 349 away this year in the minor leagues, and basically 2 good months and 2 awful months. In 2 of his months, he's had a 280 slugging this year for May and June. So I think there are some concerns with DeVries. I think, just me personally, though, I would have spent that on a controllable bat, maybe try to get some slug in there. I like the Jesus Sanchez deal to the Astros. We'll get to that. But like somebody like that who can slug, play defense, play the outfields, run, I think that would have been maybe a bigger incremental upgrade over what they needed, just to make their bullpen even better. There's always the rabbit in the hat, though. Does he now turn around and trade Suárez and maybe or Cease for that bat he needs? The rumors are no. The rumors are that he's going to keep them. And with adding Ryan O'Hearn and Ramon Laureano, as he may have just done, I think that the confirmation is pending. I think that's it. He's going for it. And it's exciting to be a Padres fan. And yet you also have to know in the back of your head, this is the best prospect that's been traded at the deadline in maybe 10 years.
There's a lot of long-term outcomes with Mason Miller that could change the way people think about this deal over time. There's a world in which Mason Miller stretches out and starts again at some point. He's under club control through 2029. There's a chance that if AJ Preller is still calling the shots in San Diego, that Mason Miller gets traded long before he reaches free agency, right? There's so many possible future forks in the road. Like that makes the Mason Miller part of this pretty exciting. We've seen AJ Preller stack up that bullpen in big ways in the past. So having an elite bullpen certainly goes a long way come playoff time as well.
About that stretching out, I think that is something in the back of people's minds. And the Padres have had some success with Steven Kolek and with Michael King and, turning some guys into starters. That's been a thing that's been done around the league. I would say that Mason Miller does not necessarily have the profile of all these other guys. When he throws 105 and he can't stay healthy, and he's carved out such a late inning role, a lot of those other guys were firemen, middle relievers. The type of money they were getting in arbitration, the type of money that they were getting, in their role made them say, you know what, I would like to try starting. That sounds like more money. For Mason Miller, it's not necessarily more money. And he's actually said on the record, I would need a financial guarantee to actually want to stretch out the starter again.
Yeah,
Carve myself out a role here.
Yeah. I listen though. The Padres have a history of getting guys stretched out and making them successful starters. So I do think if you're going to do it anywhere, it's as good a place as any to experiment. It seems like this year though, that's obviously not going to happen until guys. The comments on this are incredible. Is Jed Hoyer passed out? Like no. And I also agree with you. I think there should be a little more movement here as we get onto the wire when it comes to several teams. The Cubs are one of them. I think Toronto maybe should make another move here at some point. Texas.
The Tigers are just a couple relievers.
Guy. Yeah. Well, and they also are missing a swing and miss guy. And someone immediately say when they got Kyle Finnegan from the Nats, great, but you're adding another ground ball to guy. If you're going to be good in the playoffs, you need guys who are going to swing and miss. You need like that stuff, that filthy stuff. Kyle Finnan's good. He's a gamer. He's got leverage, experience in high leverage situations. The last member of the 19 Nats World Series, but he's not the swing and miss guy at all. So I agree. There's teams that we are waiting on. What we aren't waiting on, of course, is the Padres to act. And they to me, are probably going to be one of those teams that we're going to say, obviously we're the most active, but did they win the deadline? Like, are they any closer to being better than the Dodgers than they were yesterday? And I think the answer to that is yes. Mason Miller, now the games are so short now with this like turbocharged bullpen. And if you recall earlier in the season, their bullpen was their strength. And that was the reason that they were kind of cruising. That was a big part of their early success, was the bullpen was doing so well. So I like this trade. I know it's hard. He keeps trading away prospects, and we know that those prospects have gone on to do really great things. On one hand, on the other hand, he doesn't think the same as every other GM. And I think that is refreshing. I think if you're an Oakland A's fan, this is disappointing because Mason Miller isn't a rental. He's under team control to 29 or something. So you do have him for a while. But to me, I think this is another indication that AJ Preller so badly wants to beat the Dodgers. He will do anything to beat the Dodgers, and they just keep coming up with prospects to trade. The fact that they held on to Ethan Salas through all this, I think, it was probably the sticking point. They probably didn't want to trade both of those guys that are highly regarded prospects. So I kind of like this deal for San Diego. I kind of like what San Diego has done overall. They've made it no secret that they still think that their window is here, and they're going to go out and make this team better and deal with the consequences later. AJ Preller might not be GM when all this comes to a head, right? I think more GMs have to think this way, or should think this way. And certainly it's made for a little bit more of an interesting deadline.
I think I do like the trade a little bit for the A's too, though. Like it never feels good to trade away someone that might be the best at their position, or absolutely one of the best at their position, in Mason Miller. At the same time, when are the A's going to be a contender again? It's still probably a couple of years out. And when you have a flame-throwing closer that has a pretty gnarly injury history, I think the better move is to try and max out that player's value on the trade market. And I think David Forst and company actually did okay there. Is it fun to root for a team in that situation? Of course not. But I do think there might be something there that helps them out a lot long-term, even beyond Leo DeVries. It was Braden Nett, nice pitching prospect there. A couple other pitchers, Henry Baez and Eduardo Nunez, all going back to the A's in that trade. So volume and some impact at the top with DeVries. I think I'm more bullish on DeVries being a shortstop long-term than Eno is. I think there are some folks out there like Eric Longenhagen who are a little lower on DeVries, but I liked him a lot as a headliner. And JP Sears also isn't nothing in this too. I feel like JP Sears' name just got kind of pushed aside, like an important back-end starter that now gets to work with Ruben Niebla, right? So you think about the one thing that the A's really have struggled with is pitching development. And now you're going to send JP Sears to an organization that's pretty good at developing pitching and a much more friendly home park.
Yes. And their new catcher. I also think, as you mentioned with the home park, Mason Miller hasn't been that good this year. I think the atmosphere change of going from Sacramento to San Diego can't be overstated. Like, I think he's going to pitch better because the atmosphere is better. These games matter. He goes from a minor league park to a team that is pretty much sold out for every home game, right into a pennant race. And so I think you can expect him to pitch better. I'm sure Eno has like real scientific numbers that back it up. I just feel like pitchers going, first off, when you're going from a losing team to a winning team, it always helps guys. But when you're going from a team that played in a minor league park to minor league crowds to this, it's going to be totally different in my mind.
Yeah, he's going to throw hard. I mean, players will tell you that when you're from spring training, for example, where you're playing in minor league parks to the regular season, sometimes there's a whole tick in there. So I wouldn't be surprised if he throws harder. I like Sears also because, there might not be a pitcher in baseball that has a bigger gap between his expected results and his actual results as Randy Vasquez. And so, what you do is you take that situation where you're like, well, we banked as much as we want from that, and you kind of replace it with a real pitcher in Sears that I think can really be a great 5 or 4 at worst. And then what you do in the playoffs is you say, hey, well, we're going to have this lefty that we can bring in for two innings. And I think that with the bullpen like they have, I think in the playoffs, all their starters might be 4-inning starters. You just go 4, and if you're winning, Sears comes in for 2, and then you have that bullpen come in. And if you're losing, Randy Vasquez comes in for 2, and then you have the B bullpen go in. So I really like that part. The catcher part, Freddie Fermin. I did put up a post on social media about projections. The projections for Freddie Fermin and Elias Diaz are, at least by the Bad X, like not that just exactly the same. Like pretty much exactly the same, like 85 WRC plus. I think that undersells it a little bit. Fermin's defense is better than Elias Diaz's. If you replace Martin Maldonado's at bats with Felix Fermin's at bats, that's better. I think they got better. I just think that they're gonna miss Ryan Bergert and Stephen Kolek, and I don't think that they upgraded to like the 22nd best catcher situation from the 28th. It's like, was that worth 2 starting pitchers that you may need next year for depth? So I didn't love that trade. Even the Mason Miller one, I really would have rather have gotten back a controllable hitter. But yes, I like the aggressiveness. I like that the team has gotten better in all the good places. I thought Ryan O'Hearn was a perfect fit for them. They have not played that well against righties. They need slugging. He makes contact like they like. And they just needed to extend that lineup. There's been too many games in San Diego where it comes down to the 7, 8, 9 hitters in the 9th inning, and they can't come up with it. And they just needed 1 or 2 more extra hitters. So getting Laureano and O'Hearn, I think was pretty perfect.
Yeah. I think they tried to go with a bigger impact.
Gosh. I thought that said something else. I thought that said Jhoan
Duran.
Yeah.
Who was
no. I would have played
the Padres were trying to get.
I would have hit the Eno breaking news sound button. I wouldn't have just changed the bottom of the screen like that. But look, yesterday on Wednesday, I thought Jhoan Duran was going to be the best reliever traded, especially a guy with years of control left. That was a trade that the Twins made with the Phillies. Mick Abel and Eduardo Tait going back. Mick Abel, a guy we've seen in the big leagues this year, can start right away for Minnesota. Tait is a catching prospect that's still a few years away, but pretty good short-term and long-term value, but multiple years of, again, an elite reliever. Relievers were clearly in demand at this trade deadline, as we've seen with many, many moves. But I remember just a couple of weeks ago, you and Trevor famously bullied me into choosing Mick Abel over Chase Burns in our rookie starting pitcher draft. So I get the sense that you might really like this return for Minnesota.
Oh man, it's so weird. That seems like so long ago.
It was last month.
Seems wrong. I don't know. Now I'm like, Chase Burns pretty exciting. Although Burns has really been up and down, and maybe it was about the short term or something. I really like Mick Abel, and I think that this was important for the Twins because ostensibly they probably saw Leo DeVries, or they saw some package from the Padres.
I would think they had a call with him at least.
So I'm not sure that I'm not saying that they chose Mick Abel. I love Tait and Abel the way that sounds there. I'm not sure that they chose that over Leo DeVries and all those other pieces. But it's possible that they chose something like that they made that kind of choice. If they did, I would say it's because Mick Abel is a very exciting, ready to go guy. And they've already kind of chewed through all of their guys. They were exciting. They had David Festa. They had Zebby Matthews. Like they Simeon Woods Richardson. Well, they're using all those guys. So who's next? And you kind of look for the next, and you don't really have an impact arm the same way that Mick Abel can be. I think Mick Abel might go right into the rotation.
Yeah, good. Just based on needs. Could see more moves from the Twins, too. They've been very aggressive as sellers at this deadline, Britt.
Yeah, they have. And I actually like this deal for both sides. I think for the Twins, if you're going to trade Duran, and you knew as soon as Class A got in trouble for gambling, that all of a sudden the price for Duran was going to go up and up, right? So I think that the Twins really capitalized on that and benefited from that. And of course, the Twins also sending Carlos Correa back to Houston. They've had a little bit of a busy day. They still could make another move here as we sit. We have 45 minutes. Really, we have about an hour because they're going to trickle in. We're going to hear about them a little bit after 6. Wow. Somebody saying Dan Hayes reported a Twins player said no one wants to stay if they blow it up like this. They certainly are blowing it up. And actually, I saw somebody tweet today that a masterclass on how to lose a fan base if you're the Twins is just what they've done over the past year, right? What a disappointment from a team that finally won in the playoffs. And you thought maybe they could build on the momentum, and it was nope, let's pull the rug out from under us here. And especially because ownership in the Pollard family is trying to sell, not gaining a lot of traction. You'll never convince me that not investing in the product on the field wouldn't help sell the team. But I digress. Back to Duran. This is absolutely the move Philly needed to make. Dave Dombrowski, as we know, is AJ Preller in that he doesn't care about prospects. He doesn't care about young players. He wants to win now.
An 18-year-old catcher that has iffy defense,
And to be fair, this is it for the Phillies. Don't have a 5-year window. They've got guys that are now in their early 30s.
They're actually losing a lot out of this core even this offseason. There's a lot. This is a big run for them.
So I like this. I like this move. And this also, I think what this does for a clubhouse psyche wise, when you get a guy like Duran, is you can't put it into words. They know now who's getting the ball in the ninth. They know this guy is shut down. This changes the tenor of the clubhouse. This changes so much in terms of how guys feel. They know that ownership believes in them, that Dombrowski believes in them, the chips are going all in. These are the kind of moves that kind of galvanize the team. Not that this Phillies group needs that, but I think if you look at what the Mets have done, the Phillies had to play big because the Mets had arguably one of the better deadlines, if not the best deadline in my mind, in terms of what they set out to do and how much better they got. And this NL East is going to go down to the wire. I think you can flip a coin right now into who is the better team. So to me, this was a necessary, aggressive move by the Philadelphia Phillies. And I love it. I love it from both sides, really. It's unfortunate that the Twins are in the situation they're in, but I think that they got 2 really promising young players back, and they capitalized on a market that was missing Class A. And they were able to really probably pit a lot of teams against the Phillies to end up with that kind of a haul, in my mind.
I think compared to what the Mets gave up for Ryan Helsley, it felt like the Phillies gave up a lot for Duran, but there's also multiple years of control there. Ryan Helsley is a rental, so that's a huge part of the difference in the returns for those players as well.
My initial read on the Ryan Helsley trade was that was a lot. I mean, they gave up a guy I like in Blake Tidwell, who has good stuff plus numbers, not great command numbers, and Drew Gilbert, who people have liked, an outfielder that's close to the big leagues. I forgot what the third piece was. There was another piece. Oh, and Jose Buto, which didn't really move the needle for me, but that's 3 pieces for a rental in Tyler Rogers, in that trade. I thought that was a pretty expensive trade for them. However, it was pointed out to me that Tidwell's on the 40 man. And so you have guys like Nolan McLean and Brandon Sproat and you have guys coming up behind him that might have pushed him off the 40 man. You got a little bit of a 40 man crunch there. And Drew Gilbert was Rule 5 eligible. And that's actually something that you need to read between the lines sometimes when you're trying to analyze a trade as a fan is look at that moment. Look at when they have to be on the Rule 5, because the closer they get to that Rule 5 deadline, which is listed on the Fangraphs bio, the closer they get to that deadline, the less they are valuable. Just because then they're not controlled as a prospect more. Then you have to put them on the 40 man. You have to DFA somebody else to put them there. it becomes more and more of a crowd. So if you don't think that Drew Gilbert plays center field, and you don't necessarily think he's going to crack your 40 man, and you think that there's other pitchers that are moving ahead of Blake Tidwell, then that was an easy trade to make. So to get Tyler Rogers and Ryan Helsley, that as a combo, I just love it. I think the Mets bullpen and the Padres bullpen, I almost want them to play in the World Series. We're playing the National League Championship Series so that we can see that bullpen, because you got Rogers coming underhand, Helsley with the funk over the total, the 100 mile over the top, Mason Miller with 100 miles, Edwin Diaz with that sideways 100 miles, Robert Suarez. I mean, it would be Stuff City, if they go up against each other.
Can they call it Stuff City? I love that, actually. I love it.
That's my headline.
I think you tweeted out some of the top relievers by Stuff have moved, right?
It was Rogers and Helsley were 1 and 3 in Stuff
yeah.
Plus this year. So
yeah,
I think that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, what the Mets did, I don't know how you feel about DVR, but they obviously upgraded the bullpen, which they needed, and then they went and get Cedric Mullins from the Orioles, which I always thought was the best fit. Not because Cedric Mullins is this huge game changer. Do you disagree? My child disagrees. But I think he's not the all-star caliber guy he once was, but he gives you defense. He's a great team guy. He gives you speed on the base pass, and he was really good offensively earlier this year. I think the hamstring injuries kind of slowed him a little bit. Midway through the year, I think if he can find a way to kind of get past that, he can get back on the horse. But he's just such a good glue guy, such a good upgrade for them without having to give up a lot, because it's a rental. They gave up a trio of their prospects, but they haven't dipped. What was amazing to me about the Mets is they didn't dip into any of their blue chip guys, and they were able to do all this. So I really feel like what they did was very impressive. We know Steve Cohen, they can paper over their mistakes with money, but they haven't done that. They didn't decimate their minor league system, and they still are a much better team than they were yesterday.
Yeah, and they didn't have to give up a piece in Mark Vientos. That was an argument that I was having online about, would you give up Mark Vientos for Luis Robert Jr.? And I was a no, because Luis Robert Jr.'s approach leaves me cold. And he could be just a minus in your lineup. He hasn't been himself for a couple years now. And there's actual money attached to it. Mullins, there's not that much money attached to it. He's a free agent at the end of the year, and he's an ideal platoon candidate. You have him and Tyrone Taylor. He didn't cost you anybody off the major league roster. You can still mix and match with Mark Vientos, Brett Beatty, Ronnie Mauricio, and Luis Angelo Acuna, and Jeff McNeil. So you have a lot of pieces. There might still be, another bullet in the gun for Stephen Cohen if he wants to make a big deal. But even if he doesn't, there's a kind of a cool kind of mix and match quality to where, even if somebody got hurt or somebody, or some, big game he needed to kind of mix and match with his hitters, he can. We've seen that the Tigers have good success with that. And so you've got star power, you've got defense, you got mix and match ability, you got a great bullpen. The starting rotation is, not necessarily the Mets' strength. That's if there is one more move, I think that might be where it's going to be.
Yeah, I think that's where they're the most vulnerable. You got to get them early. I think the depth and quality they put together in that bullpen is really, really going to be a problem as you move later into games. And maybe they're just going to shorten up games. That's the tactic. You can't find that frontline starter. You don't want to pay the price for that. Then have relievers that you trust that can come in as early as the 5th if you need to. I think that's the direction that they're going. It sounds like Merrill Kelly to the Rangers is actually going down, so we'll get a confirmation on that shortly. But I've seen a few mentions of that on the stream so far. It's been kind of quiet on the starting pitching front overall. We thought Sandy Alcantara would go. We thought Dylan Cease would go. It could still happen. We got about 35 minutes until everything is locked. And then, of course, could get a report 20 minutes after that a trade actually happened before the deadline. But the trade that I was kind of surprised by was Shane Bieber to the Blue Jays. How do you feel about Shane Bieber in Toronto? Do you believe, coming off of major injury, that Shane Bieber is going to come in and just be himself right away over the final 2 months and into the postseason? Because Cal Steven kind of sounds like one of the better rising prospects that got moved. So this could end up being a pretty nice return for Cleveland. I just wonder if it's going to be a win-win deal where the Jays come away happy with what Bieber can offer them.
So I like this deal for both sides because the issue with Toronto is they don't have this great farm system, right? So earlier this week, I was in that clubhouse and the players were talking about, like, if they're going to make big impact moves, probably going to come from, and it still could come from, their big league clubhouse. But with a guy like Bieber, because the Guardians are essentially selling low on him, right? Like, he rehabbed in AA, it was scouted. Toronto has to believe that he is on his way back, or they wouldn't have made this trade, because not only do you get him this year, he's got a player option for next year. So if he's not right, he's going to say, hey, pay me my money. I'm good with the option, and if he pitches really well, then, he's probably not going to take that option and he's going to hit free agency. So I think a couple things here in play for Toronto. They don't have, and we talked about this on the podcast, like those front liners that scare you, like who's starting the playoffs, probably Gausman, then maybe Scherzer, if the same Scherzer shows up that was in his last outing, though it's tough to say. He's been hurt. He hasn't always been effective. Then maybe Barrios, so it's tough. They have a lot of depth, though, in numbers. And so I think what this does is it makes it a little bit more of an open competition. Like Bieber, 2 weeks away probably from a big league mound, right? So he only does this when I talk, by the way. He's dead quiet when you guys talk.
He just knows he can get his opinions in.
Yeah, he just
those
wants to chime in. So I think what's going to happen here if you're Toronto is you're going to basically open audition the last 2 months of the season for your starting five, because outside of Gausman, you really say nobody else is penciled in. Let's run it back. Let's see what we have. I still think Toronto makes another move. I think they're probably trying to push for another reliever here before time runs out. But I think given what they had, which is not a whole lot in terms of prospect capital, they were just never going to land a top tier starter. And for Cleveland, like you said, this is a good lottery ticket. This guy has been really good. So why not? Why not make this run? I thought that this was a kind of a savvy move by Toronto. And like, okay, we're not going to trade, even though we have a glut of big league outfielders. We're not going to trade any of them. We don't really have the system to go out and get a big starter. And as we've noted, they're not moving, and no big, huge starters have moved. How do we get better? Well, you've got some serious upside if Bieber is even a fraction of what he was before these elbow issues, right? Like, you have a potential wild card here. And if he doesn't pan out, you do have a starting five, though obviously this gives you a little bit more insurance, a little bit more depth, a little bit more competition, which is not a bad thing.
Yeah, the thing that's interesting about coming back from Tommy John is that usually the command doesn't come back. And it doesn't come back right away. But what if you start with somebody who has excellent command? I think that's an interesting proposition. It's like maybe he can come back at B+ command for Shane Bieber, and that's still good. The minor league strikeout numbers have been fascinating and great. I mean, 50%, like levels. The reports out of his rehab are great. You're hearing a lot of like, oh, he'll definitely opt out of that thing. I wonder if there's any conversations between him and the Blue Jays about, solidifying that somehow, just so there's cost certainty in this for the Blue Jays. But that aside, yeah, I think this is, at the top of the market, you basically have Edward Cabrera and Sandy Alcantara as guys that you would really want to start maybe games 1, 2, or 3. Merrill Kelly could start game 3 for some teams, but I don't think he starts game 3 for the Rangers. Maybe he does. And so, what you're seeing, and Seth Lugo came off the market. You're seeing those very few. I saw this tweet. In the last 2 trade deadlines, 4 players traded at the deadline started a playoff game after they were traded deadline. And it was for a year, right? And they each started 1 game. So, I think it's kind of rare to get a playoff starter. And if you think about it, Sandy Alcantara and Edward Cabrera come with their own warts. Even if you think that they could start games 1 through 3, they come with their own warts. Shane Bieber comes with his own warts. Shane Bieber's probably going to be cheaper than Edward Cabrera. So, that's probably kind of part of the math they did.
Yeah, and I realized the command in the first place came from different levels, but Sandy Alcantara is your cautionary tale against relying on Bieber to be himself. It takes time for guys when they come back, even if the velo is mostly back, even if the feel is mostly back. It's not always the same. So I'm really curious to see how that works out. I think it's a fascinating trade on both sides. Could be a win-win. Never know. I like seeing win-win trades, but we haven't talked about Carlos Correa.
Or just the Astros in general. That's just
yeah.
It's crazy. It's like Preller-esque. You know,
bit,
like
yeah.
there's $100 million left on Carlos Correa's deal that's guaranteed, and another sort of like 50 plus more million that he could vest.
Yeah,
This is not what you expected. I predicted they would do Ramon Urias and then little pieces like Ramon Urias and Ryan O'Hearn and call it a day, you know, and Andrew Haney, and here we go, you know. And instead they do the Ramon Urias. I'm like, okay, here we go. They're going cheap. And then they just blow right past their luxury tax caps and, you know, just add $30 million next year. So I guess he just really likes Carlos Correa, maybe personally, and maybe he felt like that's one that got away, and he wants to get the band back together.
I think we're going to get a great book someday about this iteration of the Astros front office and how it actually functions, and where within the structure it's Jim Crane versus like Jeff Bagwell versus Dana Brown. Like actually, like how much disagreement and tension do you think there is in their meetings about how they try to approach various opportunities to make this roster better?
Yeah, I've heard that they don't really have like an analytics AGM. And I feel like an analytics AGM would be like, no,
we
don't
just
want
Jim
the Correa
Crane.
contract. Yeah,
this is Jim Crane. There's no question. This is Justin Verlander all over again, right? Like they didn't. This is, remember when they brought back Justin Verlander and Jim Crane was like, "Hold my beer. I'm just going to step in and we're going to get Justin Verlander." This is the same thing. I would bet my house that this had nothing to do with Dana Brown. This is Jim Crane bringing back Carlos Correa, because keep in mind the ownership has to approve this big of a salary addition, right? I doubt Jim Crane was like, "I'll give you $100 million to upgrade at the deadline, Dana." No, because this became available because he has a prior relationship with Correa. This is why these stunners happen, right? Because no one expects it, because it doesn't actually make sense. Like the Angels buying, by the way, the Angels went out and just got Oswald Peraza from the Yankees, so they're like still on the most confusing track of all time. Thank you.
Just the most tepid buys.
It's buying in the literal sense. It's buying, but in terms of actually creating some momentum to make your team better, it is not buying. It is spinning the tires in neutral, which Artie Moreno has specialized in for 2 decades.
The weirdest team, right? Not to get off topic, but I just can't figure it out. And I don't know if you guys saw former GM Zach Scott kind of tweeted yesterday, I think, about how like this is why they never go anywhere as an organization, because like you said, they're stuck in neutral. They're like, I can't imagine the call like to Brian Cashman, like, "Hey, can we have Oswald Peraza? We're going for it." Like, what?
I mean, they probably just said, "Yeah, of course you could have Oswald Peraza. We'll take some A-ball pitcher that we can do something with, and we'll be much better off for it in the long run." You know, it's interesting. I just saw producer Brian Smith with a note. Willie Castro, according to Ken Rosenthal, headed to the Cubs. Castro is one of those players in Minnesota, pending free agent. He was like a certainty to get flipped, regardless of how aggressive they're going to be with the other parts of their roster. I like Castro as one of those guys that can play all over, even though I think defensively left field is the only place where his metrics are, above average. It's nice to have a player like that to help you bridge the gap over the final 2 months of the season. It's not the splashiest thing. I'm sure there are some Cubs fans out there that are still upset and frustrated and want them to make a more impactful move. But you add Castro, Mike Soroka, you get a little bit of reinforcement in that bullpen. They're at least trying to get some of the upgrades they need.
At best. They needed impact at the top of the rotation. Mike Soroka's
not over yet.
Swing man for them.
It's not over
Willie
yet.
Castro is glue. And Willie Castro actually says that you actually messed up something in the offseason, because they tried to get a Willie Castro for themselves in the offseason 2 or 3 times, and it didn't work out. Do you remember Vidal Brujan? Do you remember John Birdie?
Yep.
Yeah, that was all supposed to be Willie Castro, and it didn't work out. So they had to actually go get Willie Castro. So I'm giving them a B- so far. I think that or an incomplete right now.
I mean, you can't give them a final grade yet. It's been pretty quiet for the Brewers so far too. I think I was having a conversation before we went live, and there's often frustration when your team is quiet at the deadline, because people tend to forget what they did in the months prior. Right? They made the trade, getting rid of Aaron Savali, getting Andrew Vaughn, who's been really good in a limited sample so far. They went out and got Quinn Priester early in the year when the pitching injuries piled up. Now they have an excess of starting pitching, and the expectation is they're going to do something, upgrade at third base, get one more bat, maybe fortify the bullpen, and it's not happening. And I think what we've seen is there is a wide range of front office personnel. On the one extreme end, you have AJ Preller and Jerry Dipoto, and the most active, do a million things to try to get better. And that's fun. We get excited about that. It gives us plenty to talk about. And at the other end, you have someone more like Matt Arnold, who holds on to chips very carefully, but also continues to win. And it's like, it's not the most appealing thing from a fan perspective, but if the offers aren't good, it can be really effective if what was out there was going to require a relative overpay and wasn't going to make the impact that you wanted. I mean, it's tough, but I think it's surprising.
Didn't you think that like Ramon Urias would have been a good fit though? Or
yeah, he does a lot of the same things that the guys that they have on that infield do, though. Like that's kind of, there's a little bit of a redundancy if you bring him in. Like what is,
or maybe just swing a little bit harder and go for Gino. But then it looks like if they had gotten Eugenio Suárez, it would have cost them Tyler Black plus,
which wouldn't. I don't think Tyler Black in the long run makes a big difference to the Brewers' future. So if that's all it costs, then that's an upgrade you should make. So I get where the frustration comes from when your team is sitting idly by and other teams in division are doing literally anything. And the Reds have been active too. I mean, the Reds deserve a little bit of credit. We saw the Brian Hayes trade go down on Wednesday. A lot of time left on that deal. At a minimum, the Reds improved their defense. We talked about him yesterday with Jed. I had on the sheet, below average defensive team. I didn't say it. Now I'm saying it. They get a great upgrade at third base. The big question is, can they find something in Brian Hayes that pushes him back towards the production of 2 years ago at the plate? Can they get him back to being a league average hitter? Yeah, you get the park upgrade in terms of going into a home park where home runs are boosted at Great American Ballpark. But aside from injuries, Brian Hayes has been one of those inconsistent hitters that we've always looked at and said, he's got to lift the ball more. He's got to get the ball in the air more often. He hits it hard, but he doesn't lift it. He doesn't pull it consistently enough to unlock the power that we thought he had when he was younger.
To me, the Cubs need one of the Marlins pitchers. Like that's like the way to save their deadline, right? Like they need another pitcher. Those guys are still lurking. Peter Bendix last year, like basically told teams like this is how he operates, is from what I've been told, is like he basically sets the price, he sets it really high and he doesn't budge. And if you meet it, great. If you don't, fine. So I wonder how high those prices are, because neither of those guys has moved yet. We only have, under a half an hour until the deadline. And you just wonder, like, to me, that makes sense for the Cubs. Like you should push as hard as you can to get one of those guys, because I agree with you. Like it's not enough right now. It's not enough for how they're playing. I think they still need another move. And that, to me, those are two starters who do make an impact. There aren't a lot of those guys floating around. So I wonder if either one of those guys moves, because then that changes, right? They get one of those guys and all of a sudden we're like, all right, here they go. So
I think that's holding up the market a little bit. Yeah. I think we have pulled up. We're not quite even with past trade deadlines. We have had a flurry of activity, but if you notice, it's been outfielders and relievers. And I think that sometimes the top of the market has to go. Right now, the top of the market is Dylan Cease and Edward Cabrera and Sandy Alcantara, and they're locked. And, there is an update here. Chandler Rome saying the Astros are scouring the relief market while still engaged with the San Diego Padres about Dylan Cease. I'm surprised by that, because you'd think this has been a real win now deadline for AJ Preller. But, there's always the rabbit in the hat that he's got to pull. There's another note from Jason Stark that he has traded he's traded 10 prospects today already, and that he's traded 23 prospects in his 6 headline deal since 2022. So that's just who Preller is. Cincinnati is, I think, fits a little bit more with what you're saying with Milwaukee. They're very cautious. They like to buy. When they bought a reliever the other year, it was Sam Moll. It was somebody they've had for a while. They like to buy team years. They don't like to buy rentals. And so they got in Hayes, a guy who has like 3 more years and like $8 million a year on his contract, maybe 4 at 8. And that's really affordable, even if he just turns out to be who he is, because his defense is so good that at $8 million a year, you're probably getting like a 2-win player if he stays healthy. The stays healthy part is a big question. His back has been hurting him. And then you have this, like, can we unlock something? What I looked at his bat tracking metrics. I was surprised to find he already makes contact out in front. He has a really flat swing and he makes contact out in front, but in 2023, he made it even further out in front. So maybe you just say, hey, we want you as aggressive as you can be. Go get that ball. Remember what it was like in 2023. That's a possibility. The other possibility is he just becomes comfortable in who he is. The park helps him a little bit. His swing comps are Tommy Edman and Maikel Garcia. So those guys have found some value. They're not top end offensive, options, but they have found some value in defense and putting the ball in play. Usually decent batting averages, that sort of thing. So, maybe Brian Hayes doesn't have to change that much to be worth this deal. And he pushes Noelvi Marte probably to the outfield and it makes the team better. But it isn't, a big splash. And it's just not how Cincinnati has worked.
Yeah, I mean, I think some would have said a reunion for Eugenio Suárez with the Reds would have been a nice get, because one big bat was what C. Trent Rosecrans said they need to really make themselves more dangerous if they're able to find their way into the postseason mix. We'll see if they get that one big bat to add to this mix. Zach Littell was someone they added on the pitching side, and that was part of an interesting trade that kind of turned into a 3-team deal where the Dodgers got this 6'10" reliever that people were buzzing about a little bit, but Zach Littell kind of fits that mold of what Cincinnati's been chasing. They don't have the greatest bullpen, at least in terms of depth. Maybe you can find an A bullpen if you're really careful, but if you find a deep group of starters that can all go 5+, most of the time they take the ball, that's the other way to sort of take pressure off of a weak bullpen.
My initial reaction with Littell trade was to hate it because, he gives up a lot of homers, and he's going to a ballpark that augments homers. It was pointed out, though, that, this was said about other pitchers. There was another 3-team deal for Emilio Pagan once upon a time that netted the A's Jerkson Profar. And it was just a wild deal back in the day. And we all said Emilio Pagan is going to go to Cincinnati, give up all the homers. And he's currently the closer for them. So maybe they found something in their stuff numbers or their command numbers where they are comfortable with like Andrew Abbott has been fine, even though he keeps thinking he won't be. So maybe they've figured something out about soft fly balls that we don't know. And maybe Littell can do that. Littell does have a lot of command. 5 pitches, he throws 20% of the time, just throws them all towards the center of the zone and lets them play off each other. I think he probably pushes Nick Martinez to the bullpen. And then when Hunter Green comes back, then you see Chase Burns go to the bullpen. And if they do make the playoffs, that's a pretty interesting staff to go up against. Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo with Chase Burns coming out of the bullpen. So you're hoping, I think you're hoping, if you're one of the other wildcard teams, one of the other national playoff teams, that the Reds don't make it. As much as they are a flawed team, like I think get a lot better in a postseason.
Yeah, their roster shortened up, I think, has a pretty high ceiling on it that would be a problem matchup-wise, given the quality of that pitching. As far as Eugenio Suárez goes, he goes back to Seattle, second deal in about a week for the Diamondbacks and Mariners. Previously, they made that Josh Naylor swap. It's Tyler Locklear, a guy that's going to get a look at first base for Arizona in the final 2 months of the season, try to basically audition for a job for next year, and a couple of right-handed pitchers, Hunter Cranton and Juan Burgos going back. The general reaction has been that Arizona did not get enough back for the guy that many thought would be the most impactful bat moved at this year's deadline. So what do you think of that return, Britt? Do you think the D-backs left something on the table?
Yeah, I think if you look at like top prospects who were moved, and I think DeFries was the first like top 5 overall prospect that's moved since Eloy Jimenez back in the day. So it's been quite a while. I'm not saying that Suárez, who's a rental, would command something like that, but I think I was expecting a little bit more blue chip like prospect haul, especially because of the season Suárez had, right? Like as soon as he got hit in the hand, as long as he wasn't hurt, I felt like, okay, that doesn't matter. Like his value is still there. Like look at the home runs this guy's hit. I know defensively he's a bit of a liability, but to me, I love this deal for Dipoto. I love this deal for Seattle because you have a lineup now with him and the big dumper that's like you've got some mashers in that lineup. And for a long time, all we wanted was Seattle to go out and get some offense to support their pitching. And it's been a little bit of the inverse this year. Their offense has been pretty good. The pitching at times has not. But I think if you're Arizona, you had to make the deal, but I wonder what they turned down. I wonder what the other prospects were from other teams involved in this, right? Like, why this deal? Like, it's a fine deal. I'm not going to crush Arizona. I just feel like it was missing a little bit more cachet, a little bit more like, oh, that guy, they parted with him. a little bit kind of like we did with AJ Preller and Mason Miller, right? I know it's different. Mason Miller's a closer. He's under team control for a while, but you're talking about the biggest bat on the market right now, a guy who's absolutely going to affect the AL West as Seattle tries to chase down Houston. I was a little underwhelmed with this from Arizona's side.
My read on it is that they asked for the moon and they said they were like, we need someone we can plug into our lineup right now. We need a major league player and we need other pieces. And the first reaction from the market was, oh, we're going to do something else. So the Yankees, remember there was all there's thirst tweets about, oh, the Yankees need Gino, the Seattle needs they need Gino. Oh my God, Eugenio Suárez, the best bat on the market. ESPN crowned him number one available player on the market. All this stuff, and like, the Yankees are like, we like Brian McMahon, it's fine, and and the Mariners are like, hey, how about Josh Naylor? And so I think they probably looked around, were like, oh crap, everyone left the table. Like, let's re-engage and see what we can get now. Now they do get a guy they can put into their lineup next year in Tyler Locklear, so they do, in terms of whatever they said earlier, maybe they did get what they wanted, but Tyler Locklear, 24-year-old first baseman, right-handed first baseman. Two right-handed first basemen have a real high bar to clear. There are not that many of them. And you can't come up to the big leagues and have like a 100 WRC plus and be a right-handed first baseman. Like that's not good enough. You can't do that. So this guy needs to be 10, 15, 20% better than league average in order to like make himself play at the major league level. They've proven that you're going to take him off third base. So he's just a first baseman. So, there's some things I like about Locklear. He's some speed, contact, some of the high end exit velocities are there. But in terms of like, do I think you just plug him in at first base for the Diamondbacks next year and say you've got that handled? I don't think so.
I think he has to prove it. I think that's what these next 2 months are going to be. It might be a good short-term dart in some deeper leagues to say, hey, let's just see what happens with Tyler Locklear. The problem has been premium velocity, the swing numbers on stuff over 95 plus. That's he's vulnerable to fastballs. Like, that's not a good problem to have, as Jed has said a few times on the show over the course of this season. As far as Suárez goes, I saw a great breakdown. Mike Petriello had it kind of laid out, all the adjustments Suárez has made in terms of his intercept point, what he's doing with his stance and things that have really opened up that power again for him. Suárez is one of 5 players in the league that has 50 or more homers in the past calendar year. I mean, that's ridiculous, right? That's Ohtani, Judge, Schwarber, and Cal Raleigh, it's a good group to be a part of. So I don't think the Suárez power resurgence came without some significant adjustments. I think he looked like a player to me at one point. I think maybe a year ago, we were talking about him maybe as someone that was going to get DFA'd or just like lose a share of his job outright.
He had a really bad first half last year. That's why that last calendar year number is like catching like 2 good really halves, it's missing some of the picture, and there is some risk in getting that intercept point really out in front. He could see his strikeout rate rise, especially going into Seattle, that inflates strikeouts. So I predicted that he would still hit another sort of 15 to 18 homers the rest of the way, but maybe with a 30% strikeout, maybe a little bit lower batting average. But they hedge their bets with Josh Naylor, who makes contact, so I don't think that they didn't just take a team and just blow it up in terms of, the Brewers have made a move. That's not one I expected.
They traded away a starter. Well, they traded Nestor Cortez and Rosenthal to the Brewers, to the Padres. But you know what? The Brewers are one of the teams that had the pitching depth to trade from their rotation. I wonder what they're getting back. No return yet. They were a rare contender that had pitching depth. Yeah, the starter, AJ Preller, needs another starter.
A flexor strain for Nestor cost him a good chunk of this season, but looked good on his rehab assignment. So we'll see what the return ends up being there. Bailey Falter to Kansas City, also one that I've seen scroll by.
The Boston Red Sox are acquiring right-hander Dustin May from the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Okay, that one make sense.
Is there like a really weird parallel between the Dodgers trading away Dustin May and the Brewers trading away Nestor Cortez? The idea that like we're getting guys healthy, we have a little bit of a surplus here, we're going to trade this way. These other people need it more than we do. They're both rentals.
Should the Dodgers be trading away pitching ever? It feels like they've always got 15 guys
Should
on
the
the
Brewers
IL.
be trading away Nestor Cortez? I
True.
don't know.
True. Nobody has pitching injuries like the Dodgers, though, it feels like. I don't know.
That's true.
Is Dustin May just a reliever now, though? Like, is that the adjustment in
I
Boston?
think so.
He's been leaning into his cutter a little bit more, and his stuff has been up in the last couple of weeks. I think he's still got one more run in as a starter. There's also something to his like sort of east-west nature of his stuff that might help him avoid home runs, and maybe that's a problem for Boston with that ballpark.
Producer Brian saying Dustin May's red hair will be nice in Boston. Yes.
I mean, I had the Red Sox, like there's a big need for fifth start on the Red Sox. They've been using Richard Fitz, and there's some upside there, but putting Dustin May in there really solidifies it. And the Red Sox can then push him to the pen in the postseason. And they're actually a fairly dangerous team that's like kind of come together. You know, the offense is good, and they found enough pitching. And you know, I wouldn't necessarily want to face the Red Sox in the postseason. And Dustin May makes them better, so
True.
Good for them for buying.
Yeah, I guess given where they're at right now, giving a little more time to May as a back-end starter makes sense. Interesting time for him to be hitting free agency. It's just not the year that most of us thought he was going to have coming off of injury. I thought, you know, it'd be good ratios, probably 100, 120 innings for the Dodgers, kind of in a mixed role, maybe starting some multi-inning relief, and it has not been as effective, but maybe those recent adjustments will pay off.
His arm slot fell, and he became a little bit more of a traditional kind of sideways sinker slider guy.
Mm-hmm.
The Yankees have acquired Jose Caballero for Everson Pereira. Caballero gets to walk across the infield at the Yankees-Rays game. But this actually goes back to a little bit of why I like Harrison Bader to the Phillies. You think for a second, you're like, they have a good defensive center fielder who's right-handed. Why did they just get another defensive center fielder who's right-handed? I think part of that is because what you do is you push Rojas into the pinch runner, the September-October pinch runner. Bader is your starter. Rojas is defensive replacement. You upgrade offensively in center field, and you give somebody you created. What is Jose Caballero to the Yankees going to be? Like a pinch runner, defensive replacement. You know, like it's not the most important thing, but you find teams like trying to get speed sometimes late in the deadline, where they just want, or like offer the waiver claims even, you know. Well, who's the guy from the Royals that has like 4 rings? Terrence Gore.
Terrence Gore.
Doesn't Terrence Gore have like his one ring?
It'd be one ring, right?
Yeah. I was like 4 rings. Will Smith.
I thought there was some speedster who had a bunch of rings. How many rings does Dave Roberts have?
Yeah, there you go. Maybe you're thinking of Dave Roberts. 4 sounds a tick high.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you guys got on the Yankees trade deadline thus far? As we come down to like the final, 7 minutes, we might see a flurry.
Well, so David Bednar and Ryan McMahon, who they got last week, I mean, those are 2 pretty important upgrades. McMahon, I think, a lot like Brian Hayes, has that steady defensive floor, but he has a more established, productive bat. And I think going in and out of Colorado is really challenging. It's something we've talked a lot about over the years. Being a lefty at Yankee Stadium, he's going to benefit from Yankee Stadium a lot. I think the bullpen is in much better shape now. Having added Bednar, they added Jake Bird in a trade with the Rockies.
I think it's possibly that Bednar closes for them.
Yeah,
Williams is giving up some homers.
How do you think they are going to match up their highest leverage spots with that combination of Bednar and Devin Williams and Luke Weaver all there? I mean,
I bet you they'll do some some high level analysis of swing planes, because there's got to be swing planes that are like better for Williams, right? He's got that movement that's like sort of like a reverse curveball, right? There's got to be certain swing planes that are good against that. And I think, Bednar is a little bit more explosive at the top of the zone. So I bet you they'll do something about swing shapes.
Yeah, that might be the way they go. But I think they're a lot better as a result of the trades they made. They took the weaknesses, they smoothed them out. I think Everson Pereira going into the Rays hitting system, that could be something. Just think about the struggles the Yankees have had developing bats. Like, they're great at developing pitching. They're not great at developing bats.
It's weird because their minor league system
story, but that's it.
Their minor league system is really good at swing decisions and at like 90th percentile EV. So they like, as a group, their minor leaguers make good swing decisions and hit the ball really hard. I will admit that then they get to the big leagues and like Jason Dominguez hasn't been that great. Anthony Volpe's had his struggles. You know, it is surprising to me that they can do these things well in the minor leagues and it doesn't turn into major league success any better. But yeah, I guess the Rays have been better. The Rays been better at turning out the hitting prospects. Yeah, I guess so.
I think so. Like not only just the guys that they draft on their own, but the players they acquire too. We've seen some pretty good success stories there over the years. But yeah, I think the Yankees have had a good deadline so far. Yankees fans always want more, but if they're done, like I think what grade would you give them if they're done right now? You know,
I think it's a B+ or A-. I think that's a pretty good one.
Yeah,
I don't think they gave up. They didn't give up that much, and they kept their Spencer Jones that everybody was so excited about, and you know, they improved at their weaknesses. I mean, the one thing that I think is hard about improving defense, and that's been something that's been really hurting for the Yankees. They've been throwing away games with their defense. The thing that's hard about that is on some level defense is on some level the defense is like a team thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you expect a guy to be somewhere, you throw to where he is, you throw to where he's going to be. You know what I mean? Like it's like a team moving together. And so you could get Caballero and McMahon. Will it immediately get better? Or will McMahon sort of expect certain things of his defense, of the other defenders that they don't do? You know what I mean? Like they'll still have to gel, but they made their defense better. They shored a hole at third base. They made their bullpen better. And I don't think they had really glaring needs. I think that they're one of the best teams in baseball. I think that's been overshadowed by some of their play recently, but I think people forget really quickly, you know, how good teams can be when they kind of go through a stretch.
So we need to give Pirates fans something to possibly be excited about after all of this. Jay McClayton wants to know, does Bubba Chandler finally come up now with Bailey Falter out of the picture? I think that's got to be a yes, right? Like, what are they waiting for now? And maybe it's waiting a couple more weeks to make sure he doesn't log enough innings to burn his Rookie of the Year eligibility for next year. But I think we'll see some Bubba Chandler at the big.
I thought they might try Braxton Ashcraft, but I was recently hanging out with the Pirates beat crew, and they reminded me of all the different ailments that Braxton Ashcraft has had. And he had Tommy John. He had sort of, I don't know if he didn't have thoracic outlet, but he had some of the pain that leads to thoracic outlet. I think he had a knee injury in college. So there's some doubt that he'll hold up as a starter. I think there's a possibility he ends up the next Pirates closer. Dennis Santana will be a fine short-term guy for them after Bednar, but I think that Braxton Ashcraft has the stuff to be a closer for a long time. So I think that could be something that starts to happen where maybe they both get chances down the stretch.
Any parting shots before you go, Britt? No, you got to head out here at the top of the hour.
I'm glad my mic's been muted because like somebody's just been like chatting about the old trade deadline. I agree with you guys. I think what's so tough to do right now is evaluate these trades because especially the prospects, we're just not going to know. I know he's not going to let me talk anymore. We're going to have to leave, huh?
All right. Well,
we can't have any fun.
We'll recap it with you again next week, Britt. We appreciate your contributions and the contributions from the youngest member of our crew.
Sorry, guys. This is what happens when your significant other's flight is canceled on the trade deadline. Just not a busy day at all, though.
No, not at all.
Nope, not an important day at all. No, great job, Britt.
All right,
we'll catch up
guys.
with you next week.
Thanks for soldiering through.
There's no chance that I'd be able to hold a baby and do anything on the podcast. So Britt being a superstar, not a surprise whatsoever. Here's one from Ken Rosenthal. Taylor Rogers going to the Cubs. They're getting another reliever. How you feeling about that Cubs grade? Are you up from a C+ to a B-? Where you at?
No, I'm not budging.
Not moving. No.
I mean, what I'm hearing is that Soroka's a swingman too, so they did nothing to improve their rotation.
Well, we get 12 seconds for them to get a deal in. Maybe something's in already. We haven't heard about it yet. Again, that's always possible. We'll see.
You know what's interesting about that Taylor Rogers trade is he joins Andrew Heaney as players that were on another team for less than a day.
Oh, yeah. Fun list. Yeah.
It was Andrew Haney. Like he was traded to the Dodgers and then he got traded to the Angels before he even landed in LA.
Before he even reported. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we knew in that when Taylor Rogers was part of that Key Brian Hayes trade, he was not going to be a Pirate. Like there
Felt
was
like
going to
a
be other moves.
salary thing or something.
It was salary related. Yep, it was a
Yeah.
Bob Castellini thing, and then it became a Bob Nutting thing.
I love the Rays. This is what you're talking about. And I roll my eyes and it annoys me. I wouldn't even be surprised if the Giants. Oh,
Do we have one?
Doval to the Yankees.
Another Yankee reliever edition. Okay.
Wow. So now we're talking about the intense bullpens.
I had one ready.
We've got so can we do this real quick? Choose your bullpen. Yankees, Padres, Mets.
Ooh. Do the Yankees have the best depth of all of them now? Am I imagining things being a little off? I mean, I like Jake Bird a lot as the other guy that is not part of the, the.
So what are the things that make up a good bullpen? One is fire. So velocity. Who's going to win that one? Padres, I think, with two guys, 200-mile-an-hour guys.
I mean, the ceiling is incredible, and they're not going to have to rely as much, I don't think, on their 5th and 6th, especially if Cease is still there.
And I really like Adrian Morehomes, who's like, I might take him over. I'm taking him over Bird if he's 5. If he's 4 against Weaver, I might take him over Weaver. So, best lefty. Is he the best lefty in these 3 pens? Adrian Morehomes?
Man, those are all really good pens, though.
Funk score goes to the Mets. It goes Mets, Yankees, Padres on Funk.
It's hard to lose on Funk when you add Tyler Rogers.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. They've got Bird. That's the only thing the Padres are missing. They need to go get Tim Hill back from the Yankees. They're missing a tiny little bit of funk, but Adam's pretty funky. And so I think I'm going to go, oh gosh, I think it's really hard. I'm going to go Padres just because, what?
What is going on right now? The Rays just got Griffin Jacks.
Is that
Edwin
real?
Diaz is funky too, as Nick Ruse just pointed out in the stream.
There's
nothing normal about Edwin Diaz's delivery.
What? I'm not seeing Griffin Jacks on the internal yet.
Yeah, we'll see if that comes through, if that's confirmed or not. If I put that on screen and it didn't happen, that's going to be egg on my face. But
the Rays
keep an eye on it.
The Rays are really interesting because they're doing the thing that I was just saying. Like, I kind of want to roll my eyes at them. The Rays are selling and buying at the same time, which is kind of, I guess, what the Brewers did, except they forgot the buying part. And
they already bought. Don't poke the bear.
Who?
The Brewers. They already got Vaughn. They already got Priester. They already solved their problems. They did their homework early. Just because they didn't wait to the last minute doesn't mean they did nothing.
Oh, all right. But if we're grading trade deadlines, it was a sell.
Oh, the Rays last week, yeah, everybody's upset. The
Rays sold. What parts did they sell? They sold Zach Littell. We knew that was going to happen. We saw that one a mile away.
Mm-hmm.
Jose Caballero.
Yep.
And they bought Adrian Hauser and Griffin Jacks. Yeah, that's so Raysian. You know what, though?
Raysian.
It annoys me. I'm sorry. It's not supposed to annoy me. I'm supposed to be the analytics guy. I'm supposed to be like, oh, that's so good. They're threading the needle. It's great. I love it. I don't love it. Be somebody. God.
They are somebody. That's their somebody. That's the odd middle, right? That's the Matt Arnold over here, AJ Preller over here, the Rays smack dab in the middle.
Maybe. I guess so. Yeah. They're definitely not Preller.
Oh, Curtis Mead's gone too, apparently.
How does that make sense?
Well, I don't know. Were they really using him that much?
Curtis Mead was traded for Christopher Sanchez.
Yeah, that was a mistake. Teams make mistakes.
The Rays don't win every trade.
They don't. They're human.
I had thought that the Giants were going to try and pull the buying while selling move because, as I said on the pod before, they have some momentum in terms of fan interest. The one thing about Doval, though, is that we know that they've had some internal conflict with Doval in the past. They've sent him down. They've asked him to do things and he hasn't done them. So it's like, I'm not too surprised that he goes. In fact, also his stuff plus is down and his strikeout rate isn't great. they've always like, I think there's always been this hope that he would become Emmanuel Clase, but he hasn't, you know. So I'm not too surprised about that, but I thought, and maybe they did buy while selling in a weird way. Blake Tidwell might be their number 5 starter. So maybe they're like, we sold, but we didn't sell in a way that you guys will notice too hard. And we bought some guys that we're going to put on the field right now. So I wouldn't be surprised if they just put Tidwell out there right now.
Would Giants fans settle for some staff changes?
Brian says maybe it's good he's not like Emmanuel Clase right now. Yeah, I didn't mean overall.
Yeah.
You got to pick up Randy Rodriguez. Are we going to pick some real quick winners in the bullpens? It's Randy Rodriguez. I think it's Riley O'Brien in St. Louis, but it could be Jojo Romero. Phil Maton just went. I don't know. We didn't say that, but Phil Maton and Ryan Helsley went. You know, I think you kind of look to the future maybe and put Riley O'Brien. In any case, Riley O'Brien's a righty. Jojo Romero's a lefty. I think you could split some stuff there. Who is the closer in Minnesota now? You lost Jax and you lost they lost Brock Stewart, who went to the Dodgers. We didn't really, I don't know if we covered that one.
Did Varland get traded too? I thought I saw a Varland note fly by.
Go get Varland.
If they didn't trade Varland, it's Varland. If they traded Varland, it's probably Sands? No.
We do have a Tigers trade that moves the needle for me a little bit is Charlie Morton. Blue Jays acquired Louis Varland. Dude, what do they have left?
Oh, that's a good trade. Ooh, Alan Roden gets a spot to go play in Minnesota. Okay.
So he's going to go in my article. I'm going to write an article about, guys who get opportunities now. I think in Minnesota, you got James Outman and Alan Roden probably getting some run, in that outfield. Who did you pick for reliever to take over now?
I was just looking at the names and kind of trying to figure out if there's anybody I even like. Cole Sands picked up some velo last year. Like maybe it's Cole Sands. They traded away more bullpen guys than I expected. They cut it much thinner in Minnesota than I planned. I thought 1 or 2 relievers, maybe 3, but wow, they emptied it out.
I think that one, I do think that the sale looms large here. I think that there's 2 ways to think about it. Definitely the way that Britt was talking about, investing in the team could be good. But I also think that sometimes removing all sort of future salary demands can also be a way to improve your team for sale. We talked about this a lot with the Nationals, right? And what the Nationals mostly just got rid of, they didn't really spend any money while they were trying to sell for that brief time. So I think that this could be related to the sale. Danny Coulomb left. Brock Stewart left. Griffin, I'm doing the holds in the last 30 days.
Yeah.
Danny Coulomb is number 1. He left. Brock
Rangers.
Stewart left
Dodgers.
to the Dodgers. Griffin Jax left to the Rays. Louis Varland left to the Blue Jays.
Yeah.
Cole Sands is the only pitcher that has a hold in the last 30 days that's still on the team.
I guess it's Cole Sands.
Cole Sands, come on down.
I did say earlier in the week, I believe that for teams that are good or close, like trading away top of your bullpen is one way to push yourself to the next tier. Like you can take that gamble. They went from having a great deep bullpen to just shredding it. Sounds like Taj Bradley is in that trade, going back to Minnesota in that Griffin Jax trade.
Wow, they gave up on that. See, I would trade Griffin Jax for Taj Bradley. I think I'm down on Taj Bradley a little bit, but that's a little bit interesting to me.
Do you think Griffin Jax comes back as a starter for the Rays? We kicked this around before. Does he have enough pitches? Does he have enough stuff? The answer Trevor May gave us was, yeah, that could definitely work. I wonder if that's part of the plan for Tampa Bay.
It is a pitcher that doesn't really make a lot of sense in what Minnesota's done in the past with starters. Maybe they just are like, hey, we'll turn him into a reliever, and now we have a cost control reliever. He would be a great reliever. But maybe there is also something that they see that they think can improve his command, maybe something biomechanically that they can change that can improve his command. One thing that people forget about Taj Bradley is he really started starting pitching in high school, and he was drafted out of high school. So there isn't necessarily a long track record of not working out. You know what I mean? Like there's still a chance that that he's decent.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
and you can figure it out, and I would bet on it.
It's surprising the Rays couldn't figure it out, but that's just how it goes sometimes. It's just the wrong combination of Oregon player and not getting the absolute most out of him. Adrian on the stream, I don't love it. Be somebody in all caps is the new live, laugh, love sign I'm going to have in my kitchen now. I'll buy one of those if you can make them, Adrian. I'll hang one in my kitchen as well. I think that's a great line to live by.
Would you rather have Cole Sands? And I'm not asking because I have a team up or anything, but would you rather have Cole Sands or Graham Ashcraft if you were prospecting for saves, or Riley O'Brien?
Sands, Graham Ashcraft, or Braxton Ashcraft?
Graham.
Sands. Probably Sands and O'Brien, and then Ashcraft for me.
Yeah, he's been good in the pen, but it hasn't come with strikeouts, and he seems to be settled in as the setup guy. You'll see a transaction in our league.
There will be moves. Yeah, I know. I'm going to get off the stream in a little while and look, and all the emails from Devil's Rejects will be in there of all the moves everybody made while I was streaming.
So Cortez left the Brewers to go to the Padres. So what is the Padres rotation right now? It is
better.
Pivetta, Cease. Oh, did they get Nestor Cortez to maybe deal Cease like after the deadline, or is it all over?
I don't know. I think when you make the trades that the Padres made, and this will age poorly. This will age poorly in like 5 minutes when we get news that they got one in before the buzzer.
Right. Yeah.
I think when you make the kinds of trades they made, if you have the ability to just hold the payroll, you keep Cease, you give him the qualifying offer, and you get the draft pick compensation from Cease going somewhere else in free agency, and that helps you replenish some of the prospects that you just traded away.
Yeah. And I think maybe Cortez is like, he's Cortez and Sears could be lefties, relievers in the playoffs. And in the meantime, we don't rely on Vasquez. You don't rely on Kolek. You don't have King yet.
Yeah, you don't have King back yet.
So it's Pivetta, Cease, Darvish, Sears, Cortez.
Cortez will take Randy Vasquez's spot once they activate him.
Yeah,
that's
then King can push Cortez or Sears to relief when he comes back. And in the playoffs, your playoff starters are Cease. I would say Cease, King, and Pivetta, but it depends a little bit on what Darvish does between now and then. And then you have a lot of depth, so you have a better game 4 starter than a lot of teams. And you can use that depth to bridge. And like I said, maybe your starters only go 3 or 4 because you have Suarez, Miller, Adam, Estrada, Morejon, Morgan, Peralta. That is a great bullpen. That is 7 deep.
Yep.
Like Yuki Matsui is their 8th reliever.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Chandler Rome reporting no Dylan Cease deal, that according to loyal listener Alan Chen. So there you go.
I mean, it's pretty late now to get late information. The left fielder is Ramon Laureano and Gavin Sheets.
Yeah, I mean,
the DH is Sheets and O'Hearn.
This is a good lineup right now. Like you got
this is a lot.
Merrill,
this team got
Laureano.
Good, yeah.
Sheets is a first lefty off the bench. Luis Arias's glove probably not on the field. That's good. Maybe he's your primary DH. Well, occasionally you flip him in there.
I mean, Sheets. I wonder who's a better first baseman, Sheets or Arias. Yeah.
Nevertheless, right? You're playing Luis Arias less defensively. That seems like a good.
You got O'Hearn who can play first too. So,
are you surprised how quiet the Dodgers were? I know you were critical of the Brewers a few minutes ago, but man, the Dodgers had a weird deadline.
I'm not actually, because we heard some rumblings that they tried to build their team so they didn't need anything at the deadline. That was something that we've heard through Ken Rosenthal. And if there ever has been a team that's been like, our injury returners are our trade deadline acquisitions, it's this team.
Right. Once he's coming back, like that solves your third base problem. You already bought
Alex Call to be the right-hander to go with Michael Conforto, who's quietly been decent in July. So you've got you've got an okay situation there. Pages is a good center fielder, and Edman is depth there, or your second baseman. Hye-Seong Kim is good depth. They've got pieces that can move around. They're a veteran team. They've won, so like they bought themselves some time. And yeah, your playoff rotation is who's healthy at the right time. I'm a little bit worried that Ohtani left the mound, but I think they're calling it cramps.
Yeah.
I'm a little surprised. Okay, this is where I'm surprised. I'm surprised they didn't add to the bullpen. With all the bullpen pieces that moved around today, did they get any of them?
They got Brock Stewart. And Brock Stewart's a little underrated. Okay. And Paul Gervais is the 6'10" guy that was in that weird 3-team swap. Like, they didn't do nothing. They just got Trinan back. They should get Tanner Scott back. They got Alexis Diaz earlier in the year. It's a little bit of do your homework ahead of time there. And the way that roster's built, like what spot were you going to upgrade otherwise? Where were you actually going to get a significant difference maker other than doing something bigger than Alex Call to basically push that playing time away from Conforto? That was pretty much it. It was bullpen and left field. Oh, well, here's a late trade for you. Mike Yastrzemski to the Royals.
Okay, so the Giants are just straight up selling.
I mean, you can still, I don't know, you could still just play it out and be fine without him. But yeah, that one just happened. How about Jojo Romero? Do you like Jojo Romero as a threat to Riley O'Brien in St. Louis?
Sorry, I'm trying to. My AirPods are dying because we've been.
Yeah, you got an '80s TV thing going on. You got one wired earpiece in right now. This is intense stuff. When the tech fails, see, our shows are usually not 75 minutes long, so the AirPods stay charged. But we went long on the live stream, and the AirPods are toast.
All right, I'm back. So what was the question again?
Jojo Romero, do you like him? If you're assuming he didn't get flipped in a late trade, do you like him more than Riley O'Brien if you're trying to chase some saves in that Cards bullpen?
He's a lefty, and in terms of like who has better stuff, it's pretty even. Who has better strikeouts? It's pretty even. Romero's got better on-field results, and I figure he'll be a big part of it, and he's there next year, but. He's a 94-mile-an-hour lefty. So in terms of like closer stuff, I don't think that he's a long-term solution. So they may give Riley O'Brien chances. So I think that they might split the chances just to see if they've got a long-term solution to Riley O'Brien.
Yeah. We're going to talk a lot about who replaces the guys that got moved throughout our episode on Friday, by the way. So we're just doing
what are the Royals doing? They're kind of a weird like buy. They bought Mike Yastrzemski. They bought Bailey Falter. Bailey Falter is not a rental.
Randall Grichuk, too, prior to the deadline a couple days ago.
Bailey Falter is not a rental, right? He is under control till 2029. So they were shoring up their rotation for next year with Bailey Falter. Yastrzemski is a rental, but he must not have cost much.
No, I don't think so.
And I wonder if that means that Gilbert goes right into the outfield there. They got Luis Matos, but Gilbert is a left-hander, so you could at least be like, hey, we're going to try a platoon there. There's some question among Mets fans if Drew Gilbert can play center field. And at 24 with a 103 WRC plus in AAA, there's not a lot of projection there. And the hard hit numbers, the exit velocities are okay. The strikeout rate is good, though. So I think you might try Drew Gilbert right now. I think you might try Blake Tidwell right now. You're going to put Jose Budo right now. So all the guys that Buster Posey got, I think, go right onto the Major League roster.
Did the Giants do just as well for Tyler Rogers as the Cardinals did for Ryan Helsley when you look at the respective returns those two teams got?
For what they needed, I think the thing that obviously the Giants were targeting is, hey, help us next year, and so for their needs, because they don't want to do a rebuild in the middle of Buster Posey's ascension.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to fritter away the goodwill they did with the Rafael Devers trade. So I think that they were like, really prioritizing people they can put right back onto the field. And they got that. I was, the Tyler Rogers trade was one of the ones where I was like, the first one where I was like, oh, okay, that is more than I expected.
Right, trying to get a little more depth, a little more immediate big league help, because as you said, they're not pushing reset anytime soon. They're still built to be competitive next year, and I think they've got a very big winter ahead of them to sort of bridge the gap on the likely playoff teams this season and where they end up.
If you're the Twins, do you put Mick Abel or Taj Bradley into the rotation right now?
Both.
Who are you? Oh,
Bailey Ober's still
there.
hurt. He's going to be back soon, but
David Festa's still hurt. Maybe you
Ryan,
just put them both in.
Matthews, Woods, Richardson, Taj for sure. Yeah, you can start them both. Maybe you go 6-man probably with that group.
If Festa comes back or Pablo comes back or Ober comes back.
Yeah.
I think long term, Zebby is one of my favorites in that group. I still like Zebby like ahead of most of them. Maybe Mick Abel. But they've been able to get a lot out of Bailey Ober and seemingly Woods Richardson, where I wasn't sure there was as much in there. So they're an underrated pitching development squad, and they have some good pitching. It looks like Brooks Lee's, the shortstop now. Luke Keishel's probably just the second baseman now. They've got 2 outfielders they're going to try out. I think maybe first base is an open spot for them in the future. So maybe Larnach goes to first, and Outman and some of these outfielders that they have they'll try on the outfield and see if they can push somebody to first base. They're not like that much worse than they were before, but they do not have a bullpen like at all. So it is a big step back in terms of bullpen.
But of all the things they could put together, I don't think it's that hard. I think that was the big question I had looking at the Twins. Walker Jenkins is close to being big league ready. Emmanuel Rodriguez said another year full of injuries. He's not that far away. Keishel, once he's healthy, is part of this mix. They get away from the Carlos Correa contract, at least a large portion of it. I think they're paying down some of it. Carlos Correa hasn't been good. Like I didn't. When they signed Carlos Correa, I thought it was actually an okay deal for them. Like I thought the production was going to be there, that his bat would age well, and that hasn't really been the case. Like he's hitting 267 to 319 OBP and a 386 slug this year, 6.3% barrel rate. It's his lowest barrel rate in a full season since 2018. Like I think they actually did kind of well to just get away from Correa, given the infield depth they have, given the situation with the possible sale of the team, and given how every dollar seems to matter. I think that was actually pretty smart.
Yeah, I can't fault him for that one. I like ripping the bullpen down to the stubs is a little bit tougher for me, because you can't really go out and the return for Doval was a little bit different than I was saying for the Giants. Like these look like these guys are further away. I don't think any of these guys, and it's sort of a 4 different pitchers that I think they'll be able to hopefully develop or whatever. But
if you make trades like the first one with the Tyler Rogers deal, where you get 3 guys that are all on your 40-man or even all on your 26-man at the same time, you can't take everybody on. You don't have enough roster spots, so you're gonna have to take some guys that are further away and some guys that are either on your big league roster or close to it.
And back to the Twins, they made some trades for some players that might end up being relievers. I think of Pearson Ole is a guy who came over in one of their trades, and he's like a very over the top guy with a great changeup. And right now, he's still being tried as a starter, but he's already, this year, he didn't come over in a trade, but he's close to the big leagues, and he's 22 games, 5 games started. So he might actually be already. They may already have some internal people that they were like, we like these guys better as relievers, and let's just move some of these guys over to reliever because we got Mick Abel, and we got Taj Bradley, and we like them better as starters. So if you are a good, pitching development team, then you can make a bullpen for yourself. And I guess that's the bet there. The Royals were weird, I think. Orioles, Brian points out they're only 3 out in the wild card. I guess when you're buying rentals like a Mike Yastrzemski, you're sending your like 19th best prospect, and you're just not worried about that. And when you're buying Bailey Falter, you're saying, hey, he's going to be around next year. So you're only getting pieces, and that's why I thought Carlos Estevez might leave town today, but he didn't end up going. I think he was on the Rangers' radar. Carlos Estevez was, but instead they pivoted and got Kyle Finnegan. What do you think about the Rangers deadline?
Not bad.
What did they get?
Merrill Kelly. They added Merrill Kelly. They added to the bullpen. They didn't get another bat. Like we thought about maybe Ryan O'Hearn or another bat like that for them. That didn't happen. I kind of think they could have pushed a little harder because they also feel like a team that, because DeGrom is healthy right now, especially, has a little more urgency. They're not as old necessarily as the Phillies because they have a few young pieces like Langford and Carter and guys that are going to be there for a long time. But I do think being a little more aggressive would have been fine given how injury prone that group of starting pitchers is and that they're actually healthy right now.
Yeah, I can see. Oh, Danny Coulomb.
Yeah, there you go. There's their bullpen addition. He's an underrated reliever.
That actually makes Robert Garcia like a safer closer, probably.
Yeah.
Because, Coulomb is a lefty behind him. I don't see anything else.
I did see Shelby Miller to the Brewers. Do we have a confirmation on that one yet?
No.
One more arm for the bullpen. So they did something on the actual day of the deadline. Well, then they made that Nestor Cortez trade, but the return for that was what? Brendan Lockridge?
I'm surprised it took Curtis Mead to get Adrian Hauser. I'll have to say that. But Mead sort of fallen out of favor. I think the defense isn't there.
Right. Yeah. It's what do you think? Like the Rays playing the middle the way they did. Are you surprised by Hauser specifically as the guy they would go out and get, or do they just see an easy Zach Littell replacement?
He's just interchangeable. They just like the players that they got for Littell better than the players they gave up for Hauser, I guess.
Yeah, that's something. They had a bunch of guys leave today's game with an injury too, so we'll see.
Blue Jays got Ty France in with Louis Varland, so first base is really open for the Twins. Yeah. I like getting Louis Varland for the Blue Jays. I don't think he'll close, but he'll probably set up. They lost Chad Green, and I think Louis Varland is going to be at least an eighth inning guy for them. Oh, and I was trying to say earlier, I like the Tigers getting Charlie Morton. It doesn't push the grade above a B or B minus for me for the Tigers, but for a team that loves to mix and match in the rotation and the bullpen, you get a guy with a crazy curveball who's been a lot better when he's 95 miles an hour. Well, that sounds like that might really work in 2 innings, and I hope it doesn't push Troy Melton out, but if they use Troy Melton and Charlie Morton together in one sort of rotation spot, that wouldn't surprise me. Gibson Long comes back. I mean, this is pretty well set up for pitching chaos again. They had an opportunity to improve the lineup a little bit and then didn't take it though.
Yeah. I think if I'm a Tigers fan, I'm a little nervous. I'm a little nervous that the upgrades were more depth and less impactful than what they have turned out to be so far. I would have liked to see them make one more push on that roster. Yeah,
but Morton is a consummate professional, and he's kept the velo above 95, and that's been pretty good. Does Duvall change the perception of our Yankees, Padres, Mets ranking earlier? Maybe.
I think when you rattled off the full scope of that Padres bullpen, it still felt like that was the best all around group. Yeah. And they're all great. Those are all nasty bullpens that are going to be a problem if they can keep those entire units or most of those units healthy. Like those are problem bullpens come October.
So I said earlier why I wasn't surprised that Luis Robert Jr. Didn't get traded, partially because he's due money, and even this year. And then there's this team option that I think the White Sox are trying to be like, hey, and you can have him for only $20 million next year. And I think some teams are like, I wouldn't want him for $20 million next year. So why are you selling me on this? And there's this upside, and then how poor his play has actually been, plus his really terrible plate approach. That's one reason he didn't get traded. But what you do find, I think, is that some of these more complicated contracts where the value and the contract you're not sure how they match up, is part of why Sandy Alcantara didn't move. Because you might say, okay, I like having Sandy Alcantara under contract for $17 million this year, next year, and $21 million for 2027. I like that generally, but you're selling me, and Merrill Kelly's almost in the, and Mitch Keller's almost in this too, where it's like, I like that generally, but does he solve a need for me going down the stretch? How many innings do I have left for Sandy Alcantara? How good is he going to be for me down the stretch? So I think there's still candidates, Keller and Alcantara, for being traded in the offseason, when people are like, I'm trying to build a rotation and I can either go out and spend $60 million on this free agent starter, or I can trade for Keller, who has $60 million left, or I can trade for Alcantara at 60. You know what I mean? Like when they're being put up against, I could have a whole season of them, and for that money, then I think they'll get traded. I think at the trade deadline, it was like, you trade for Mitch Keller. Does he start a playoff game for you? Is he that kind of guy? And how much value do you then put in years 2 and 3 of that contract? So I think that's part of why Sandy didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, there's a club option for 2027 out there, so there's still runway. If Sandy Alcantara pitches well in these final 2 months, takes the momentum from the last couple of starts, looks more like the guy that won the Cy Young Award a few years ago, there's going to be a lot of suitors this winter because the contract is still good. It's still more than 1 year of control. It's not like the window slammed shut. Whereas that Luis Robert scenario you described, I think the White Sox are just big-eyed with what could go right in a situation where we're seeing a lot more of the what could go wrong. And it's been multiple major hip injuries for him. It's just been I don't know, man. Like, I like Robert as like a low risk addition from a cost perspective, but I'm also not excited about $20 million for next year, at least based on what we're seeing so far this year. 2 months could change that. I guess that's possible.
Here's a little trade I didn't see at all. Miguel Andujar to the Reds.
Miguel Andujar to the Reds. Okay. Yeah. DH, basically.
Yeah, I guess. The defense has really fallen off. He's a rental. Where's he? So he fits. So CES is just, you got to stay in the minors and try to figure out. Gavin Lux is a weird DH for this team. So you're going to play Gavin Lux in the outfield some more. So you're helping your outfield by putting Gavin Lux more in the outfield.
It's a bench bat, I guess. The update from producer Brian Smith. The Twins included $33 million in cash to help cover the remaining $104 million that Correa is owed.
But there's still some vesting options.
I think they were right to get away from that deal when they could. And I say that as someone that liked the fact that they extended him, and the health situation got worse. So that was the variable that maybe you could have seen coming, given some of the things that led up to his forays into free agency. But I think that was the smarter long-term move.
Oh, and producer Ryan pointed out the Rangers also got Phil Maton. So that's, they improved their bullpen. That was what we wanted for them. We maybe wanted a bat for them, but we really wanted them to improve their bullpen. So, oh gosh, what is this last one?
Yeah, what has happened? We're 30 minutes past the deadline. Will Salmon and Ken Rosenthal saying the Brewers acquiring Jordan Montgomery as a part of a trade with Arizona. I saw Shelby Miller's name float by too. That's according to Robert Murray. So what's going on with that?
So Jordan Montgomery places Nestor Cortez. Fungible lefties.
Yeah, you can never have too many starters, right?
Nestor Cortez.
Other than the flexor strain that was earlier this year, I would too. I think that's the only part that made me a little nervous about relying on Nestor Cortez to come back and then be himself for 2 months and possibly into October.
I like Shelby Miller to the Brewers. Who's a team that we just haven't seen make a trade that we're just like, what's going on, dude? I guess we sort of talked about the Dodgers a little bit.
It was a little bit. The Dodgers were a little bit quiet. Atlanta didn't sell off as much as we thought they could possibly trade away.
The Cubs had a pretty quiet deadline. They got Willie Castro and Mike Soroka.
And some bullpen help.
Who'd they get in the bullpen?
Their bullpen edition. Braves did nothings with the chat's just lighting up with right now.
Who did nothing?
The Braves.
Oh, yeah. But
they didn't have much to move, though. Marcell Ozuna hasn't played well this year.
Nobody wants
Iglesias
him.
Looks
Cubs
old.
got
Yeah.
Taylor Rogers, Willie Castro, and Andrew Kittredge.
Kittredge, Taylor Rogers and Kittredge.
It was pointed out to me that their stuff model must just be very different than mine, and that's totally possible. Soroka's slurve is interesting. It's pretty good. His K- BB, Michael Soroka's is pretty good. And if you put him into his velocity has been down a little bit, but if you put him into a swingman situation where you like start Ben Brown for 3 innings and then it's Mike Soroka or something like that, I think you can pull some of that Tigers type pitching chaos.
Use him the way you were using Chris Flexen earlier this year.
That's it. That's
do
the
that.
idea.
Soroka's a lot better.
Yeah, and then your playoff rotation is unchanged. It's Imanaga, Boyd, and Horton.
Yeah,
Tyon.
Yeah, Tyon's back.
Talking about, man, what? We can't.
I
even
have no
put
problem with that.
Playoff rotation.
Give him an A, man.
That was Brewer fan in you.
It's fine. Give him an A. Max effort. They did everything they possibly could. They exhausted the resources of the Ricketts family and did everything they could to make that team better.
Oh, man.
I'm sorry. The sarcasm maybe didn't come all the way through. I'm fine with it, though, to be completely honest. Like, I am more than okay. How about Zach Gallen still being in Arizona? Is that kind of weird?
It's a little bit like the Sandy. And there was an interesting piece by Will Salmon and I think Tim Britton where they talked about why the trade deadline hasn't been as exciting this year. And they pointed to Luis Robert Jr. and Zach Gallen and Sandy Alcantara and said, these are prime candidates for being moved that are just not playing well. And I think that has to change your like your projections, your like the media. Think about the media thing. It's like, like with the Cubs, our big trade deadline acquisition was Zach Gallen. And you have to be like, over the last 5 years, he's done this. And everyone's like, so what's he done this year? Like, let me not flip over to his stats for this year.
But you just
realized Montgomery's out for this season.
Like, wouldn't you feel better about the Gallen being in that Cubs rotation as their 3 compared to Tyon or Horton or? Like,
yes, I would. Yeah, I would.
And the qualifying offer, Shane points this out on the stream. Like Zach Gallen is going to get a qualifying offer almost guaranteed from Arizona, and maybe he'll even take it. That's possible. And if he leaves, they get draft pick compensation that's probably better than the offers they were getting because he's not pitching that well.
Yeah.
Yeah, little odd, but all right.
That's the math that they did. They said we get a pick. The pick is worth this. Are the players you're offering us for Zach Gallen worth that much?
Yeah, the Jordan Montgomery thing. Like, what's that all about?
It's money. I think it's part of the Shelby Miller trade.
Yeah, it's just offsetting some costs.
There's something there. Maybe they just didn't want to pay a prospect for Shelby Miller, so they're like, okay, we'll give you Jordan Montgomery and Shelby Miller for cash.
Right. Just pay down a little bit of what we owe him, and we'll give you Shelby Miller.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Matt Manning to the Phillies. He got DFA'd after, I think, the Paul Sewald trade. They had Sewald, Rafael Montero. Here. Yeah, they had a bunch of guys, but Matt Manning to the Phillies. Any interest in Matt Manning, maybe with a fresh start? I just wondered if Matt Manning to the bullpen was the next step. Finally, I felt like we tried long enough.
I think that's what the Phillies are thinking.
I think that could be an interesting project in the next couple of months to see if that goes anywhere. Any other thoughts before we sign it off? I think we could probably call it a day and get ready for our Friday show, which is going to look at a lot of the fallout, who steps up, whose value goes up as a result of these departures.
A little surprised that the Giants sold as much as they did. I am not surprised that the Padres went as crazy as they did. I thought the Phillies might have one more big swing in them, but they, the big contenders all made their teams better without spending that much. I think that you can even kind of lump maybe the Dodgers into there a little bit. They worked around the edges, and they said, this team that we've got is probably why we make it. It's probably not going to be something that we get from the deadline.
Yeah. I think your point about how the Dodgers were built and the players they had coming back from injury made it kind of easy to see why they weren't that aggressive, especially given the cost to get top end relievers. And as we know, sometimes their small trades end up making pretty meaningful impacts too. So I'm really curious to see if they can find something in that odd 3-team trade that we weren't that excited about. The Astros being as aggressive as they were was fun and exciting. Carlos Correa actually getting moved, even if he's not that great anymore. It's a fun story. And all of that kind of comes with the news we learned this week. Isaac Paredes almost certainly being done for the year with that hamstring injury. They're talking about hamstring surgery. So that must be like a grade 3, like full on tear.
Yeah, it's a bad one. Red Sox were relatively quiet, but Dustin May and Steven Matz is a way to improve the worst part of your team. I'm kind of going through the contenders and being like, I feel like there's somebody that just didn't do anything. Do you think the Mets deadline was pretty quiet?
That was solid.
They did the bullpen stuff.
They did bullpen stuff. Get a little upgrade on the hitting side with Mullins too. A little more depth there. They had a solid deadline.
Yeah. I think your grades for mostly contenders are like B's, and then who gets the A's. I mean, San Diego gets the A for aggressiveness.
A for aggressiveness. We'll see if it's A for impact in the long run, if it actually works out.
And if you're analytically inclined, like an E or an F for sustainability of said moves.
That's not going to be AJ Preller's problem, though. I think the more we look at this team and the way it's built and how it functions, when things are really bad, I am willing to guess that someone else will be calling the shots by then.
Yeah, I think I like the Mets, Phillies, and Yankees trade deadline's the best. Don't spend too much. Spend guys that are going to be off your 40-man or DFA'd or getting too close to roster crunch. Improve in the bullpen. Do some light work on the lineup, and call it a day.
I think Mariners had a good deadline too. I think they're worth
put them in there.
Good contribution from producer Brian Smith. Thanks to producer Brian for doing all the hard work in the background. I got a note here saying he's going to trade his phone for a beer in a few minutes. So I think that is our cue to go. Thanks to all of you that joined us live, and thanks to everybody who listened. Like this video on YouTube. Hit the YouTube channel subscribe button if you haven't done so already. That's going to do it for this episode of Rates and Barrels. We'll dig into some of the secondary winners from this deadline on our episode on Friday.
Thanks for listening.